and welcome to our daily roundup of the latest news from the Africa Cup of Nations. I'm Alison Sargent. Thank you very much for joining us. Group A finished off their group stage this Monday with a series of 1-1 draws, ties that send Burkina Faso into the knockout stage alongside the hosts Cameroon, who finish at the top of the group with 7 points. Now, Burkina Faso's draw with Ethiopia still means that they edged out Cape Verde for second place. Cape Verde will now have to wait and see if they qualify as one of the top-ranked third-place teams. Well, we can cross over to France 24's James Vasina now, who was following today's game between Burkina Faso and Ethiopia. James, ending their final group game with a tie works out just fine for Burkina Faso, but it does mean the end of the road for Ethiopia.
It works out just fine for them, but it was decisive. They absolutely needed that point today. They got it, and they make it their way through to the round of 16. Alison, as we analyse this game, I think that the first man that we need to mention is Ouedraogo, Burkina Faso's goalkeeper, because he really saved them so many times and didn't allow Ethiopia to go ahead and push any further. Some stellar saves, which was so important for them as they managed to win out that 1-1 draw. Now, today meant the return of Bertrand Traoré, who returns from after having contracted COVID-19. He was in the game, he was there, present, maybe not quite such as precise as he can be, but they did do the job. After they opened the score, though, there was that VAR check by the referee that awarded Ethiopia with a penalty. Kabede slotting it in for his side to equalise. And then after that, well, Ethiopia really pushed forwards because they were bottom and remained bottom of their group. They needed those 3 points to have any chance of trying to go forward. But Burkina Faso stood still. They stood their ground and managed to hold it throughout to the end of the game. So Burkina Faso finished second, as you mentioned there, just ahead of Cape Verde after beating them in their fixture together. They are on the same number of points, but Cape Verde have that crucial spot through to the round of 16. Ethiopia's journey, however, ends here. The one-time champions of the Africa Cup of Nations bow out of the tournament at this point, last in the Group A. This after picking up their one and only point today in that draw.
All right, James, we'll stay with us because we're going to come back to you in just a moment. But for now, we're going to talk about the day's other game between Cameroon and Cape Verde. Another 1-1 draw that keeps Cameroon at the top of the group going forward, but leaves Cape Verde's future in doubt. Now, Simon Harding spoke to some of the Cameroonian players after the match. Here's what they had to say.
I have mixed feelings, but we did what matters. We wanted to finish in first going into the round of 16. We achieved our goal.
We finished first in the group. Unfortunately, we tied today and we wanted to win. But we're still first and we're very happy.
Well, as we heard from the players and as our sports editor Simon Harding now reports, that result was not ideal for Cameroon, but it does give them what they needed.
It is a job done for the indomitable Lions, who importantly finish top of their group. Yes, the hosts had already booked their place in the last 16 by winning their first 2 group stage matches, but it was important, and the sports minister had come to see them to tell them you must ensure that you finish first so that you maintain your matches at the Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé, where you can have the most support. Well, that is done for Cameroon, led once again by the fantastic Vincent Aboubakar, who scored his 5th goal of the tournament. That's 5 of his team's 7 goals so far at this Africa Cup of Nations 2021. Cameroon, who weren't able to make it a clean sweep of victories in the group stages, playing out a 1-1 draw with Cape Verde. Aboubakar's goal cancelled out by Rodriguez's wonderful Cruyff flick in the second half. That means that Cape Verde are 3rd in the standings with 4 points and have a very good chance of qualifying as one of the best place, third place teams in the group stages for the knockout stages. Cape Verde, if they qualify, would be a second time in their history. Once before they had qualified directly for the quarterfinals at the time when it was a 16-team format. But certainly for Cameroon, a lot of question marks remain. How are they going to fare against perhaps the bigger teams on the continent, as you get the feeling that they still haven't been tested? And bearing in mind that Cameroon could still now play against a third place team in Group C, D or E, with potential matchups against Algeria or even arch rivals Ivory Coast, then the expectation is that the Indomitable Lions are going to have to raise their game and raise it quite significantly if they want to go all the way, which is, as we know, the expectation here.
Well, speaking of expectations, Algerian fans are still reeling from the team's surprise loss to Equatorial Guinea on Sunday. The defending champions will now need to beat Ivory Coast on Thursday in order to qualify for the knockout stage. It's a do or die situation that few could have predicted. Laurent Berstecker has this report.
Billed as one of the competition's favorites, Algeria could now be eliminated from the Africa Cup of Nations before even reaching the last 16. Sunday's shock 1-0 defeat to Equatorial Guinea means the defending champions are now bottom of their group with only 1 point from a possible 6. Despite the result, Algerian fans who traveled to Douala to support their team still believed in their chances.
On s'y attendait pas, tout simplement. On était assommés hier soir, on est rentré, on était déboussolés, on ne savait pas quoi faire. Bon, effectivement, on a perdu et voilà, maintenant on est dos au mur. On n'a pas le choix. Hein. Et le prochain match, faudra tout donner, hein, et puis c'est tout. Hein.
It was a frustrating evening for the Desert Foxes, who dominated the game with 70% possession and 10 goal attempts, but were unable to find the back of the net for a second game running. Algeria's head coach, however, defended his players and said the result showed there were no more underdogs in African football.
Aujourd'hui, il n'y a plus de petite équipe en Afrique. Il n'y a qu'à voir le match de cet après-midi, Mali-Gambie. Il n'y a qu'à voir le match du Sénégal. Quasiment toutes les équipes sont dans la difficulté.
In order to get through the group stage, Algeria now needs to win against Ivory Coast on Thursday. And with the Elephants' qualification also hanging in the balance following their spectacular 2-2 draw against Sierra Leone, the game promises to be a riveting, hard-fought spectacle between two familiar foes.
That Algeria game, of course, coming up on Thursday. Let's take a look ahead to Tuesday, which is going to see the final games in Groups B and C. Now, Group B remains wide open, with Guinea and Senegal tied with 4 points each, and Malawi just behind them with 3 points. Guinea is most likely to pick up points by playing group underdogs Zimbabwe. The bigger clash on Tuesday is going to be that match between Senegal and Malawi. And we can cross back to James, who's going to be at that game tomorrow. James, Senegal is not doing as well as they'd hoped. What are they going to need to do tomorrow in order to secure their spot in the knockout stage?
Well, look, Alison, as you said there, they're in a comfortable place in second spot, tied with Guinea on 4 points. But if they slip up tomorrow, that could cost them a lot. They could slip down to third position. And with the way that things are going, with the amount of points that have been picked up in the groups around the tournament, that could be a very dangerous one. And it would be very difficult for them to perhaps get through to the round of 16. That's mostly because of the lack of goals from the Senegalese team. They've yet to score if only but the penalty that Sadio Mane slotted in the final minutes of their opening game. Apart from that, they've yet to find the net. Senegal, who we have huge hopes for. I mean, going into the tournament, they're classed as one of the favourites, and rightly so. They're ranked as the top African team, and they've got a stellar squad. But as we've seen with Algeria, as you mentioned just there, it's not always the way things go. Sometimes we expect a lot from the favourites, and when they don't deliver, well, we're all very shocked. And of course, the players are upset. Right now, Senegal are going to step things up, and especially when we consider that Malawi did come back from behind to beat Zimbabwe Zimbabwe, that we know that they will be a force out there. One point, though, that Senegal that has impacted Senegal throughout this is that the two games that they've played have been at 2 p.m, the peak of heat here in Cameroon, and that's something that they have complained about a lot. Sadio Mane saying that it isn't fair that one team should be selected to play twice at those times whilst others aren't. And look, they've used that reason, or let's maybe not say the only excuse for those results, but as one of the reasons why they've been struggling so much. Tomorrow, that won't be the case. They'll be playing in the afternoon at 5 p.m, so they won't no longer be able to use that excuse anymore. They will be expecting to see a very solid team. They're going to need to put everything out there, and there's no time to slip up or any errors tomorrow.
It will be interesting to see if playing later on in the day has an impact. Now, there is going to be less suspense tomorrow in Group C, with Morocco already qualified for the last 16 with 6 points. Gabon, though, could overtake them as top of the group when the two teams meet this Tuesday. Gabon, though, has been struggling with multiple COVID-19 cases on their squad, and this Monday they decided to send their captain, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and midfielder Mario Lemina back to their European clubs. Now, it's believed a disciplinary breach may have occurred during their isolation, but Gabon's coach said that the reason was ongoing concern about heart inflammation after the players recovered from COVID-19.
We're not in a good position to analyse the dangerousness of what caused the inflammation, so we can't take any risks. And on top of that, the psychological aspect is becoming unbearable for them. Staying in the room has become unbearable. So yesterday we talked about it, and we decided to make them go back.
Now, in Group C's other game on Tuesday, the stakes will be high for Ghana as they take on the Comoros Islands. As Simon Harding explains, the two-time champions have not performed as well as they'd hoped, and if they lose on Tuesday, they'll be out of the tournament.
It's make or break time for the Black Stars. After an underwhelming start to their Africa Cup of Nations campaign, the Ghanaians have no choice. They are going to have to beat the Comoros Islands in their final group stage match in Garoua in order to reach the last 16. Anything but that will be viewed as a major disappointment for the four-time champions here on the African continent. They who came into this tournament with major hopes of adding a fifth crown to their name. But the reality is that for Ghana, it is a difficult period. The generation that reached the quarterfinal of the World Cup in 2010 is coming to an end, and Ghana have created far too few opportunities in this tournament to hope so far to reach the last 16. They conceded a late goal against Morocco to lose that one, and conceded a late equaliser against Gabon, leading their coach to question the concentration of his players, who far too often have relied on the creativity of the ageing Andre Ayew. Andre Ayew, the Ghanaian captain, who says his team are going to have to play the game of their lives against a Comoros Island side who, let us not forget, are still not out of the competition. A win for them could see them reach the last 16 as one of the best third-placed group teams in the tournament, but the emphasis very much on the Black Stars and on their star players, including Thomas Partey, who will have to play much, much better if he wants to lead his team to the last 16 and the knockout stages.
Well, whatever the final scores turn out to be, there is at least one way in which history is going to be made on Tuesday. AFCON is going to see its first ever game overseen by a female lead referee. Rwandan ref Salima Mukansenga will be the top match official for the game between Zimbabwe and Guinea. Let's cross back over to James one more time for more. James, what does this represent for women in African football?
Alison, it's huge. Salima Mukansenga taking charge of the game is a massive step for football and for African football and for the tournament, of course. Now, she'd previously overseen one of the games in the earlier stages as a fourth official, but this time round she'll be out there, and to back her up, it's the whole team of referees, the 4 match officials will all be women. A massive step, a huge step for her, but of course for football as well. And the first thing that comes to mind is that we do know how much of a struggle this would have been for her to get here. Football is such a male-dominated sport, from the management, from the playing, all the way to the association. So it's a huge step for her. It's a huge step for football, but it's also a message of encouragement for many women out there and girls also who would like to one day be able to become a referee.
All right, James, I know tomorrow I will definitely be watching the games for the referee as well as for the players. Thank you so much for that. And that brings us to the end of tonight's show on the Africa Cup of Nations. The team and I will be back with the latest on Tuesday evening at around 11:40 p.m. local time. Until then, stay tuned for more news on France 24.